Hey guys, how's it going? It's Al. Week 4 is here, and it was an absolutely wild week with 3 games. 2 being canceled, 1 being postponed, and now it's a Monday night game. We're going to kind of go over strategies for it, but typically we only spend time on the 1 game, the game between Atlanta and Green Bay in Green Bay, but we also have a game between the New England Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to stick to the main game. I will gloss over the Kansas City New England game, even though that's maybe the higher profile game. It starts a little bit earlier. We're going to have a little bit of overlap on these 2 games. There are now 2 showdown slates on Monday night, and there's 1 overarching 2-game slate. If you like those mini slates and you want to attack that, go for it. This is more of a showdown video to talk about how to build tournament showdown lineups and the strategies that we're going to talk about. I'm also going to look at things through the lens of the Fantasy Labs Optimizer. If you guys have not used it before, go check it out. There's a link right down below, smizzle.tv/labs with an uppercase L. It'll be right in the pinned comment. It's also in the description. There's discounts to a bunch of different sites, but on the showdown slates, we like to use the Labs Optimizer because if you've never used one before, and you're looking at getting into MME using there's a lot of mini max games where you can enter 150 times for a nickel an entry, a dime an entry, quarter an entry. Mass multi-entry is something that you should learn to do to see if it is something that you are skilled at, because if you are skilled at it, it's a great way to try and go after making a lot of money down the road, especially during football season. If you're a small bankroll player, putting in 150 lineups in these mini max games is a great way to try and learn how to do it and have upside for your $7.50, your $15, your $60, depending on the level of entry fees that you want to get in for your 150 lineups. You can still win between $500 and $3,000. And for those smaller players, that's a lot of money. So learn how to do it. It's a great way to get in, and the Labs Optimizer is a great way to start with that. So let's go take a look at what we have here. Obviously, the quarterbacks are typically the most expensive players on a showdown slate. Atlanta against Green Bay. We know what both teams bring to the table. Green Bay's been an absolute juggernaut so far, and we've had an injury to Davante Adams. He's a game time decision for Monday night. I kind of expect him to play in this game, but they just lost their secondary receiver in Allen Lazard, who was doing exceptionally well, which opens up a lot more snaps, routes, and potential targets for MVS. Because Valdez-Scantling. So he's somebody who's been good. He's more of a downfield threat as opposed to Davante Adams, who works underneath, the running backs who work underneath. He's a field stretcher, but he's a big body that can get it done in the short to intermediate ranges as well. And now with more snaps, routes, and targets, he's not priced where he should be. So at $7K as a captain, he's going to be extremely popular on this slate. We also have a new injury, but it says that he's going to play as Calvin Ridley, who sustained a little bit of an injury in the last week, but he is expected to play via Jay Glazer. And we have returning from injury Julio Jones. It's good to see him back. One, he's an amazing wide receiver, one of the most talented in the league. Even though he's getting a little bit up there in age, he can still get after it and do it at an extremely high level. And when you have Julio Jones on the field, it's impossible to pay attention to the other weapons. So he can deal with double coverage and excel. You still have somebody like Ridley, who led the league in air yards in week 3 by like a massive amount, who can do the damage himself. And he's been one of the most high volume, high output receivers through the first 3 games of the season, but way more efficient in the 2 games that Julio Jones was active, as opposed to the game where he put up against Chicago, where he caught 5 of 13 balls headed his way. Granted, you know, when Julio's out, he's going to get more volume, but when Julio's in, he's going to get similar volume, but more efficiently targeted, because he's going to see a lot more one-on-one as opposed to the games where Julio's not there. So first thing that we need to talk about is our grouping. Whether you're using a lineup builder or whether you're building lineups by hand, you have to think about the way that you're building your lineups. We talk about this when it comes to building lineups for a main slate. And one of our listeners on the 06010 podcast took down 100,000 this weekend. He tweeted at us. He showed the lineup. The lineup was essentially Dak Prescott, 2 Cowboys receivers, brought it back with somebody on the other team was Odell Beckham Jr., had himself a massive day. There was also a secondary stack in that lineup because, as we always say, it's easier to be right about 2 things than it is about 6. If you have to play 6 individual uncorrelated players, it's much more difficult to have the blow up by having 6 things go off at once, as opposed to 2 different things happen, 1 game shooting out and a second game shooting out. So We stick to those rules on main slates with full game and not showdown. And when it comes to showdown, correlation is also key. And it's something that a lot of players don't pay as much attention to as they should, especially beginning players. So Aaron Rodgers, I had him on my do not draft list, and I'm not looking too good about it right now, but I was saying don't draft him because guys behind him like Cam Newton and Roethlisberger and those guys were 3 and 4 rounds later. There was context to it, but Aaron Rodgers looking like a great pick in the 10th round right now, especially with him averaging 3 touchdown passes a week. And doing it with all the injuries to his passing game has been ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. Maybe he's back. We'll see if he can sustain that sort of play moving forward. But against Atlanta, he should be able to, as their defensive backfield has given up a ton of yards and touchdowns to opposing teams. So if you're going to plug him into your captain spot, typically we're going to limit our captains to no more than about 15% of our overall captaincy if we're building a lot of lineups, because you have more opportunity at a ceiling game when you play wide receivers or running backs in your captain spot. More chance at a 35 or a 40-point game from a wide receiver or a running back than you have from a quarterback. And if a quarterback has that type of game, they're typically the type of quarterbacks who can add 1 or 2 touchdowns with their legs. It's just not something that a pass-only quarterback is going to do. So like the games where Aaron Rodgers has had, he's had great games, right? 33 points in the first week. That type of game can win you a showdown. However, you had somebody else on his team that had a better total than this at 33 points. The next 2 weeks had great games. Still would not have won you a showdown with these type of numbers. So probably going to limit Aaron Rodgers to about 7 or 8%. Probably going to limit Matt Ryan to about 7 or 8% overall in captain spot. And I'm going to build 2 groups around this, and we'll talk about them. So any lineup that I build that has Aaron Rodgers at captain, if he plays, I'm going to have Devontae Adams, and then I'm going to have at least 2 of this group. Let's just sort by the Green Bay guys. We're going to have at least 2 of this group with him, Valdez-Scantling. If you want to include Tanyan, you can. You don't have to, but he did see 8 targets in the last 2 weeks. I'm going to include basically any pass catcher. I'm not going to include the running backs, though I'm not going to exclude them from being in this stack. I'm not going to build a special group that says they can't be in that. And then if you want to add somebody like Taylor, if you want to think that one of these other cheap wide receivers is going to fill in, then obviously add them into that group as well. And I'm going to make at least 2 of those guys be in that group. And then I'm going to build a bring back group, meaning a group of players from the other team, and use at least 1 of every position, not a kicker or a defense in that group. So Matt Ryan, Ridley, Julio, I don't want to use Gurley, but fine, Gurley, Gage, whatever, Hurst. You can use all those guys in that group and make sure that you include at least 1. We're going to do the same exact thing in all of our Matt Ryan lineups. If we include him at the captain spot, we're going to make sure that we have at least 2 of Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones. Definitely not going to include Todd Gurley, as he has not at all been involved in the passing game, with 7 targets through 3 games and 5 of those coming in 1 game. We'll include Gage there. We'll include Hurst there. If you want to include Zacchaeus or any of the other cheaper wide receivers just to be in that group for savings purposes, I get it. We're going to include 2 of those. And then we're going to include I'm probably going to include the kicker as well in the quarterback group. If the optimizer wants to utilize a kicker with a quarterback is correlated better with kicker than you would imagine, less so than a running back, because if the team is going to score over 30 points, the kicker is going to chip in. And every single point in a showdown really, really matters. The difference between like first and 1,000th is 2.5 points in most Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football games. So every point matters, especially if you're looking for savings. But I'm not going to stuff kickers. In fact, speaking of the kickers and defenses, the one thing that I always make sure that I do is I build that one group that's going to include, not a captain, I'm going to include the kickers. Young Hoku is out for the game, so make sure you get Fry in there if you're going to play the kickers, and include both defenses in this group. And I'm going to make sure that I limit to 1 of them max in any lineup. So you'll build a group that says at most 1 in any lineup. As I was saying, we're going to kind of look at the other game as well. We're going to build the same groups. If you're playing that Kansas City New England game, we're going to do the same exact thing. For every time we use a pass catcher, as I said, you want running backs and wide receivers mostly in your captain spot. So if we use Tyreek Hill in the captain, I'm going to make sure that Patrick Mahomes is in that group as well. Because if Tyreek Hill is your captain and he wins, right? If he is the winning captain on the night, it probably means that Patrick Mahomes had a good enough day to have to be in that lineup as well. If Tyreek Hill has 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, Patrick Mahomes probably had at least 2 touchdowns in that game, unless one of them was on a kick return or a run attempt, which can happen, but much less likely. If I'm going to include a running back at kicker, or at captain, I am probably going to make sure that I do not have the opposing defense. I'm going to build a group that says exclude this defense from any running back and captain spot. So all those groups are necessary, whether you're using a lineup builder or not. And when we look at the Fantasy Labs Optimizer, and here it is right here, there's a link down below, as I said before. You can go right here to the settings tab. You go to Optimizer, you click settings. That's what brings that up. And I've got them saved just for time-saving purposes. Obviously, for a showdown, I'm willing to leave money on the table. So I'm going to, make sure every lineup that it builds is going to have a minimum of 90% of the cap used and a maximum. Obviously, I'm going to let it use as much salary as it can, but I'll let it leave more money on the table. I have less of a problem leaving like 3,000-4,000 on the table in showdown, especially when you're generating 150 lineups for differentiation purposes, to try and get the highest scores that you can get, the highest 150 scores that you can tabulate using a ceiling projection or a median projection or whatever. You want to allow it to leave more salary, especially in the case of kind of slower games where players just aren't priced up enough. And if there's an injury, it brings in other players into it. So we go to the position tab right here. And this is going to basically tell the optimizer to build the groups that we had talked about. We're going to pair a captain quarterback with at least 2 wide receiver, tight end, or kickers from the same team. We are going to pair the captain quarterback, no matter who it is, with at least 1 quarterback, running back, wide receiver, or tight end from the opponent. We're going to pair a captain wide receiver with exactly 1 quarterback. We're going to pair a tight end with exactly 1 quarterback from the same team. We're going to limit the defenses and kickers from the same game. We can also build a group that says, where is it? We go here, we go limit to exactly, or at most, exactly 0 defenses if the quarterback or if the running back is captain. You can do that in the player correlations as well. Same sort of thing. Insert a rule when lineups include who do we say? So like Aaron Jones at captain. If we're going to use the running back, we're going to add a rule. We're going to say exactly 0. Is it Falcon or Atlanta? We're going to include exactly 0 Atlanta defenses in any group where, or any lineup where Aaron Jones is our captain. That basically does all the groupings for you, so it makes things easy. We go to apply settings, we just hit that, we click here, we go over to here, you make as many lineups as you want, 150, and you click generate lineups. And it's going to build us 150 lineups based on the rules that we have set, and then you're going to go through and tweak it, kind of like I said. It's probably the first thing it's going to do is it's going to spit out a bunch of lineups for us that have the quarterbacks at captain, because that's what optimizers do, especially when you're building lineups right here by projected points. Projected points are basically built around the median projections, especially if you're using the lineup builder to build lineups for the Kansas City game where Patrick Mahomes is going to be the quarterback. So you can see if we sort here by captain, Aaron Rodgers is our captain in 23% of our lineups. We want to make sure that's a maximum of 8. Matt Ryan's in 22% of the lineups. We want to make sure that's 8. We save that. We regenerate lineups. I don't suggest ever using a lineup builder, going to a site, running the lineups. It's called doing it vanilla, right? Just go to the site, print, make 150 lineups, jam them into a tournament, and think that you're going to print money. That's just not how it works. There's a lot of time that goes into it. You have to tweak the projections. You have to tweak the allocations to make sure that you're getting exactly what you want the lineup builder to build. What the lineup builder does is it takes an objective view at building these lineups, and it saves you a ton of time. Entering 150 lineups into a showdown slate would generally take me about 3-4 hours to hand build them. This does it in about 25 seconds after I set the rules that I want, and then I can tweak these, and it usually takes me about an hour of building lineups to get exactly the allocations that I'm looking for to give myself the best chance to win. I hope that this helped you guys. I hope that you have a great Monday night. I wish you the best of luck, not just in the Kansas City, New England game, not just in the Green Bay, Atlanta game, but if you're playing the 2-game slate as well. I hope that you win something. Somebody bank something big. Look out for another video. It'll be right here.
He's a legend.